Wind in Truth is crawling with little crumblings known as the Sleepless. Some in obvious ways and some in some hidden ways that I think can tell us a lot about the future of the Cosmere. So in this video, I want to break down all of the various appearances that I think that we see the Sleepless and what it can tell us about what is still to come. But this video, if it isn't obvious, will include spoilers for all of the Stormlight archive up through the end of Wind in Truth. It will also include spoilers for Dawnshard, which is a novella between books 3 and 4 of the Stormlight archive. So let's get into it. But first, who are the Sleepless? So the Sleepless are Dician Imeans, which are basically like a sentient non-human race present on Roshar. And they're crumblings that share essentially a hive mind. They are basically like the keepers of Roshar and the Cosmere's secrets. And what we learn in the Dawnshard is that as part of that, they have been involved in like hiding and protecting one of the Dawnshards, the known Dawnshards, that Risen eventually discovers and picks up in Imea. So they, as far as we know, they're not native to Roshar, and we don't actually know where they originate, but I think Wind in Truth gives us a little bit of a clue to that. So let's break that down. So one of the most obvious areas where we see the Sleepless show up in Wind in Truth is kind of explicit. It's where Risen and Wit meet, and as they both hold Dawnshards, and those two Dawnshards almost merge and collide. And through the course of that conversation, we see two of the Sleepless emerge. That's Nikli and Withador. Tell me how to pronounce that in the comments, please. And those two Sleepless emerge to basically like yell at Wit about taking up the Dawnshard again and bringing it to Roshar. And this little vignette, I kind of take it as it is, which is the Sleepless doing what we know that they already do, which is protecting one of the Dawnshards on Roshar. The second area that we see the Sleepless, I think we can also take at face value as them being the keeper of many secrets on Roshar. And that's where we see them, we see a strange purplish crumbling kind of hidden in the air ducts, watching Dalinar and Navani being pulled into the spiritual realm. And also, incidentally, that crumbling is also almost pulled into the spiritual realm with them. And again, I think what this mainly shows is that the Sleepless are kind of like all over the air ducts collecting their secrets. It shows that Wit is aware of them, and it actually shows that Lift, who notices this crumbling and wonders, and wonders what they are also aware of the role of the Sleepless hiding in the background collecting secrets. But where it starts to get really interesting is, I think, a little bit more in the background, which is that that the Sleepless are potentially tied to the surges and the forms of power on Roshar for both humans and for the singers. And to break that down, I want to start by talking about the epigraphs in day 3, which I believe are written by one of the Sleepless. And specifically, and I'll put the full text of the epigraphs on the screen, but specifically the epigraphs say, "The time has at last come for our stewardship to end. Obviously, the passing of the Dawnshard was the first indication that this event was near, but there are other signs, and the age of transitions has arrived." And at the end it says, "We must travel to the well of control within the shroud of the fragments of the dead moon. There we will find our destiny. We cannot stop him from destroying us. It is time." And so what I think this shows is that the Sleepless are somehow connected to what's happening at the Well of Control. And the Well of Control is essentially Odium's perpendicularity, which we learn is hidden on the Shattered Plains. And that is kind of like the pool of where a lot of Odium's power comes from, and that the listeners eventually discover and then control. And I think this is borne out, this connection between the Sleepless and the Well of Control is borne out because we see repeatedly Kremlings, purple Kremlings, following Venli and the listeners as they discover Odium's perpendicularity over the course of Wind and Truth. So what's so special about the Well of Control? What we learn is that Ba'ado Mishram seems to have gotten the ability to connect to all of the singers and grant them their forms by stepping into the Well of Control. She says, I stepped into God's role, I took his pool, his perpendicularity, and I'm tied to every singer who holds a form. So there's this connection, I think, between Ba'ado's Mishram's ability to grant forms that she got through the Well of Control, the Sleepless's connection to the Well of Control where they must travel, and the ability to have forms or surges of power. This is also borne out by a little throwaway line of a conversation between Syl and Kaladin, where Syl is explaining where the bond between human and Spren is symbiotic. It's both give and get. And Syl says it's like Kremlings, and Kaladin goes, what do Kremlings have to do with this? And Syl answers, everything. And so I think this is like a wink and a nod from Brandon Sanderson that again, that the Sleepless are somehow tied to the forms of power, to surges on Roshar for both the humans and the singers. But there's another angle here, which is the fourth moon, or the fragments of a dead moon that is at the Well of Control. And I think this is the fourth moon that may have crashed onto Roshar. And I actually think that because there's this connection with the Sleepless to the Well of Control, that it's possible that the Sleepless actually originated from this dead fourth moon, which is what enables them to have this connection to the Well of Control. So what do we think? These are all, I think, like little hints here that I think all of the pieces are yet to be put in place, but that somehow connects the Kremlings with the Well of Control, with the Sleepless, with the ability to grant forms of power, and with this dead fourth moon that is hidden on the Shattered Plains. And so I'm really excited. I think this is where a lot of, again, as we look to the second set of the series, that a lot of where it may go, that we may unravel some of these secrets that the Sleepless are holding. So if my reading is right, especially with the epigraphs, it seems to suggest that these like mysterious but well-informed entities who play such a critical role in power on Cosmere see that the world is changing and their time is coming to an end. And I think this raises a lot of questions. First, who is the epigraph referring to when they say he is going to succeed in destroying us? The obvious answer, I think, is Odium, but taking a step back, what does Odium, or now Retribution, have to gain in destroying the Sleepless and potentially the Surges as a result? Instead, my theory is that it could be, say, Wit, who we know is most uncomfortable with the destruction of Adonalesium and the potential for destruction on Roshar. Second, I think, which is an important question, is what does it mean that the Sleepless think that their stewardship is coming to an end? Does it mean, for example, that the Dawnshards are going to be used again? And who or what could be the target? And I think connecting it to the first question is like, if the Dawnshards were used to destroy or unmake Adonalesium, could they in turn be used to put Adonalesium back together? And so if Wit succeeds in destroying the Sleepless, could then his goal be to then use the Dawnshards to put Adonalesium back together and right what clearly is a wrong that he feels that he is uncomfortable with being part of? So there's a lot of theories here that I think we could come up with, and they're all wild speculation, but it's clear to me that the Sleepless and the future of their race will play a central role in what is still to come if and when Brandon writes the next books. Thanks everyone. If you like content like this, please like the video, please hit subscribe. I continue to try to post as regularly as I can on all of the various clues and hints associated with the Cosmere.